Vegan leather is a term that refers to materials that are often made to look like natural leather and often feel and even sometimes smell like natural leather. Most commonly, they are made from a polyurethane, a PU, or a polyvinyl plastic, commonly known as vinyl. However, recent developments and deep interest in creating alternatives have yielded a variety of vegan leathers that are often made from natural sources such as plants, including the cactus, the pineapple, and even grape seeds. And it's really important to differentiate that vegan leather is not real leather. It's mostly used as a marketing term to describe things that look like leather because leather is commonly known. So keep that in mind as we go. These are essentially materials that are all their own, sometimes even just plastic. But that said, let's check it out a little more closely. Natural leather is rather costly to produce, as well as time-consuming to manufacture. Vegan leathers that are often quicker to make, less expensive, and can potentially, if sourced and managed sustainably, be a much more sustainable material over the long term. However, in the context of this conversation, it's really important to keep in mind that the majority of what is called vegan leather is essentially just a clever marketing term for plastic. We're going to dive a little more into understanding what that means and where it came from. One of the many benefits of vegan leather is that it can be produced to meet a variety of needs in industries and standards. Since it is man-made, it can be made in huge sizes, way larger than any kind of natural leather. And additionally, it can be put onto fabric, different kinds of backings and other materials to kind of combine them into a finished material that have all different types of colors, additives and surface textures and protectants and coatings, all the things that you can imagine applied to it. And since it is essentially a curated mixture that creates the final product. So this opens up the opportunity for a lot of variation. One thing to keep in mind too is that although it's less expensive and has more options than a natural leather, it does have some inclinations to wear out sooner. For example, it could dry out over just a couple of years, whereas a natural leather can last decades. Vegan leather can also weaken and crack in areas that have frequent use. So the lifespan does become a factor, even though the cost is less expensive than a natural leather. So it can definitely be a decision-making process in terms of which is going to be better for your product. Let's take a look at the history of vegan leather. We'll check out a few of the advancements in technologies over time, and even more specifically, some of those vegan leathers. A few vegan leathers come from the 18 and 1900s. And in recent centuries, advancements in technology have allowed for a variety of synthetic materials to be made that look and feel, and even sometimes smell, like natural leather. Generally, the availability of petroleum-based plastics has driven innovation the most in this area. So let's take a look at a few of the key innovations that have come over the last 200 years that have really led to the options we see today. First, we look into the late 1800s. There is a material called pressed off. And pressed off is a simulated leather made from the tree pulp, and it was developed in Germany. A little time after, in 1914, we have the invention of naugahyde. This is the first rubber-based artificial leather. It was developed by the U.S. rubber plant and was a business based in Nostoc, Connecticut. Also, the inspiration for the name naugahyde. They developed the material that relates to a process of producing coated fabrics, whereby an artificial leather of great efficiency and high quality can be produced. That's how they refer to it. That became a relatively popular material around 1915. In 1926, we see the first polyvinyl chloride, also known as PVC. All those same researchers at the B.F. Goodrich Company produced the material referred to as vinyl. And then, a few decades later, in 1963, we have Corfam. DuPont developed this type of parametric leather substitute, and that became popular for just under a decade and then fell out of favor as additional synthetic materials were being developed, also at a much faster pace into the 1970s, the 80s, and beyond. And now, in modern day, we're looking at a wide variety of vegan leather options that are moving a bit away from petroleum-based plastics and more into natural, plant-based fibers. And a few of these that you know are getting more popular today include cactus leather, pineapple leather, we even have mushroom leather, mycelium leather, and a variety of options like that. and even one that we're going to take a look at next, which is grapeseed leather. So we talk about these materials, these plants, and even some of these plastic-based things. And it can be tricky to picture what that would look like. You know, we're basically calling something leather that is plastic, or we're calling something leather that is, from a pineapple plant, or in this case, a grapeseed. And so let's see it. We're going to take a look close up at the top, the bottom, and then a section view. So here we have the top of grapeseed leather. And if we look at how it looks, wow, very much like a leather texture on top of a natural leather piece. So it's really amazing. Being that it is a man-made material that uses some of the natural grapeseed elements, we can certainly notice that we can put a texture on top, right? And then we can make this whatever we want it to be. That said, it looks pretty good, and even feeling it has a similar surface texture. Not necessarily like the feel per se, but the texture is very close to natural. So that's surprising and pretty cool. Looking at the bottom, we notice the relatively uniform bottom as well. Definitely different than the top. This is a little more, fibrous and has a little more of a soft touch to it. And this is the backing that the top layer is applied to. And that's how we kind of get this material thickness. So again, it's not a natural, though it does look pretty good. And it doesn't look vastly different than some leathers that have a backing on it. All right, let's look at the section view, and here we go. This makes it as clear as day what's going on. And I love these, they're really fun. So on the bottom, we can see that we have a total fiber base, and the top is adhered to that. And then in the middle, we have our relatively porous area. And then on the top, we have our surface layer. Now on the top, it's usually tighter and more dense, just like we see here. And then as we get lower, we begin to see an increase in the spacing in the widest fibers towards the bottom. Now obviously this is not leather. These are not leather fibers. But in terms of creating something similar to it, we do get a little bit of a parallel to that, with a denser top and a more wide open bottom. And so it's really cool to see that material when holding it. It's relatively soft, it's flexible, and pretty sturdy. It has a little bit of outside scratch resistance, as well as a little bit of water resistance. So overall, this is what the inside of the grapeseed leather looks like. Now the production process for vegan leather is similar to this grapeseed leather. They're going to have some similarities and also some differences. Overall, we'll touch on what is the most common, but usually they're all going to be mixed in the first phase. And this is when the composition for that material is really going to start to come together. It'll include different elements, such as the grapeseed ground down, obviously, and there can be pigments. There can be other binders that may be used, as well as the material itself. There can be colorants, some protectants, and things like that. They're all mixed together, and then once they're mixed, they're generally extruded. And this extrusion process essentially lays it out onto another material. And this could be done with a gravity machine, where it's evenly poured onto the backer and then allowed to dry. And the backer can be something like a cotton, a polyester, a carbon, a fiber, plastic, metal, or really any kind of a mesh. And that way, depending on the final desired characteristics for that material, it can have a hard backing, flexible backing too, like in this grapeseed leather, or you can have something that is of a consistent thickness throughout, such as a PVC leather, where it'll just have a smooth, even back and be a consistent look and feel throughout that material composition. So once it has been extruded, heat is applied to help it dry evenly. And then after it's dry, we can move on to the next step, which is the third, and usually includes stamping, embossing, and printing. For example, if we wanted to put a surface pattern or a texture on it to make it look like natural leather, that can be done at this point. Large metal plates and the reverse etching is pushed in there on very large plates and pressed into that surface. Sometimes there's a large metal wheel, essentially a mechanism that has that etching on it, that would roll down and then imprint that pattern as it's rolling. And that would basically put that unique design into the surface, keeping it consistent and easy to produce a nice, quick, finished look and feel. Once everything is stamped and embossed, we may want to put some type of coating on it. This can be used for things like a gloss finish, a matte finish, a transparent polymer to help reduce scratches or abrasions, and even adding some water resistance as well. So all kinds of things can be added. That's done at the end, and after that finish is complete, we have our completely manufactured, ready for use material. When looking at cost, vegan leathers can range anywhere from around $2 to $30 per square foot. Now that's a huge range, right? So this is essentially looking at all the different types of vegan leathers. There's something, starting out like a PVC leather, it's going to be far less expensive than maybe a cactus leather or something like that. There's also wide variations in color and finish and quality and protectants and things like that. So that's why this range exists. You could definitely get vegan leathers in the low end, and you could find vegan leathers at the higher end. Looking at the pros, vegan leather is usually inexpensive, water resistant, and some are waterproof. Since again, they can essentially be plastic, which will help make them highly water resistant. They can be made in virtually any color, and there's lots of texture options available that can be made from many substances. Sizing can be pretty much as big as the machines can make it, which is often way larger than any type of a natural leather. Also, some can be used in water-related environments that have a lot of moisture, or for coating applications. So if you're near the ocean or another area where leather would wear out more quickly, this can be an effective material in those situations. However, in just a few years, we often start to see some weakening and degradation of vegan leather fibers, of vegan leather material, also in coloration as well, depending on where they're used. So if you're using it for clothing, you may notice that happening over some time, and some do have a plasticky feel, since again, some are plastic. So it's important to keep those factors in mind when selecting it for a project. So as we look ahead, some of the newer vegan leathers can be really cool, and you also may see some of those prices get higher than other types of vegan leather. Although in most industries, production gets more efficient, and as that happens, prices can come down. So we should see some of those prices start to come down, especially for the more niche or specialized vegan leather types. This will help make it more accessible for everyone. So considering what is good to make with it, there are a wide variety of options, for pretty much any items you're looking to produce. For example, there are going to be purses. We have all types of things like straps, journal covers, wallets, clothing, hats, jackets, and shoes, anything that you can really think of. There's likely going to be a vegan leather and make it look really great. And a few tips for working with vegan leather. Pretty much, first, get to know your material. Get to know the feel, get to know the material properties, because it could be very different than how a typical natural leather responds to tools. If you're going to sew with it, it's going to react a little differently to how the thread is going to sit on the top, how you may finish it. For example, you may be using a natural leather with a lighter thread. You may want to use a different type of thread, color or thickness, on a vegan leather. So essentially, you can use some scrap pieces and get familiar with how your tools react to it. And that way, when you're making your finished piece, you're going to have more consistency in that end result. And there you have it, a look into the world of vegan leathers. There's a lot of really cool ones out there now, and more are being developed all the time. In a few years, we're probably going to get even more innovative as we're able to. And we may even get closer and closer to mirroring the feel and performance of natural leather while still being able to use these alternatives. And that may open the doors to new design opportunities and things that we can all explore creatively and functionally. So if you're considering vegan leather for a project, it can definitely be a great option and lead to some really excellent results.